Hi, my name's Darryl Jack. I'm a master instructor for the Jim McLean Golf School at Sunridge Canyon in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'd like to talk with you a little bit about chipping and a couple of things that a lot of people don't recognize are important components of chipping. First, we want to define what a chip shot is. A lot of times in my golf schools or my private lessons when people come in, or if I'm playing in tournaments, in pro-ams with other players, I hear them say, oh yeah, just chip it or pitch it, as if they're the same shot. Chips and pitches are two different shots, so we always like to define them. A chip shot, by definition, is going to be a shot that has minimal air time and maximum ground time. So it's going to spend most of its time on the ground. A pitch shot would be the opposite. This has maximum air time and minimal ground time. So we're going to be discussing the chip shot here. Again, minimal air time, maximum ground time. Most of the distance that this ball is traveling is going to be on the ground like a putt would travel. So there's a few things that we want to do. A phrase that comes back to us over and over in the short game is the less moving parts that you have, the less likely you are to make an error. So we're going to do some things in our setup to reduce extra movement that we don't need. The first one that I always recommend is that a player at least try using a putting grip. This is going to take your hands and wrists out of the shot to a certain extent and get rid of some of that extra movement that we really don't need. So we'll use a putting grip and slide our hands down just slightly on the club. Not necessarily all the way to the steel, but just a little bit is great. Another thing we can do to reduce movement is use a very narrow stance. When we're hitting full shots, we want some lateral movement to create some power. This isn't a power shot, this is a precision shot. So we're going to take that lateral movement out of this shot. So a narrow stance with a putting grip. The ball will be played in the center to a little bit behind center in the player's stance. And then we want to favor the front foot or the left foot for the right-handed player while we hit this shot. We tell players at least 70% of your weight should be on your left foot when you start this shot, and you should never have less than that throughout the completion of it. So the setup's going to be very important. When we make the stroke for chipping, it's very much like a putting stroke. It's a pendulum type stroke where the shoulders, the arms, the hands, and the club are all going to move together as one piece. It's also a good idea to lean the shaft of the club forward to the point where the back of your left wrist is flat. This is going to help to ensure a downward strike on the golf ball, which is what you want to pull the shot off successfully. But in the nature of this stroke, what a lot of people do that really creates a huge mistake is they think of this shot as a soft shot. Since by definition, this shot's going to spend most of its time on the ground rolling, we want to think of this as an aggressive shot. So we're going to take a nice brisk stroke through this golf ball to get the ball moving. Now, Jackie Burke Jr. talked about the game of golf as being a series of hitting circles. He said from the tee, you aim at a circle in the fairway. From the fairway, you're going to hit into the green, which is basically a big circle. Once you're on the green, you putt to a 3-foot circle around the hole, and then ultimately, the smallest hole that we're trying to get to on the golf course, that cup. So when you're chipping, recognizing that, again, the ball is going to spend most of its time on the ground, if you employ the type of setup and execution that we're demonstrating and have talked about here, with a 7-iron in your hands, the total distance that the ball will travel will be about 1/4 in the air and 3/4 on the ground. So you want to look at the shot that you're trying to hit, divide it in half, as far as the distance, and then divide that half again so that we have a spot that's about 1/4 of the way to the target. That's going to be our primary target. So that's our circle that we're going to hit, thanks to Jackie Burke's description of this as a game of hitting circles. So everything that you're going to do to prepare to hit the shot well is going to be focused around making a swing that's going to land the ball in that area. Sometimes we use hula hoops or something similar to demonstrate this to players. And if we hit that spot with an aggressive or brisk stroke, the ball will roll the rest of the way. So we're going to give this a try. We got our putting grip, a nice narrow stance with the ball center to a little back, and I'm going to put the majority of my weight on my forward foot and lean the shaft forward. A brisk stroke generated from the shoulders, where the shoulders, arms, hands, and the club all move together, and I'm going to see if I can land this ball just about on the shadow of my head here on the green. That's about 1/4 of the way to the hole. We'll see what we get. So pretty good. I was just right about at the spot that I was aiming, and you can see that the distance worked out very well. Remember that a chip shot is an aggressive shot. We want to make a brisk stroke through the ball because we're planning on the ball rolling the majority of its distance. Chip shots are minimal air time, maximum ground time. If you employ this type of chipping stroke, you'll see that with a 7-iron, it'll travel approximately 1/4 in the air and 3/4 on the ground consistently. I know that if you practice this, you'll get to the point where you're not only trying to get it close, but you're going to be trying to make these.